Thanks for taking a look at section 3 of chapter 5. Not that you have much choice about it, but I thought it might be kind of fun to just put my face on this. I don't really know if it'll work out really well or not, but they say on all of the internet information that it's good to have your teacher's face on the videos. So we'll see. You guys can let me know. So we're in section 3, Conserving Biodiversity, and we're going to try to get a handle on what things are done to conserve in the ecosystems that we have. It's kind of an ugly picture, I'll be honest with you. Things are not looking that great for the environment in the next 50 to 100 years. Part of that problem, well, the vast majority of the problem, is that humans are just simply becoming too numerous for the earth to be healthy. Now, we can feed all of the people. Right now, that's not a problem. But we can't really do it without, while still having healthy ecosystems. Sorry about that. So, 7.5 billion humans have their needs met by the ecosystem. And this is a fun little triangle that it talks about the needs that people have. You don't have to worry too much about this. It's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's kind of an interesting concept, but the most basic need that any human has, obviously, are their physiological needs, like food, water, shelter, sleep. Once you have those needs met, then people worry about their safety, and then they worry about more material, or not material things, but more being loved, being part of the group, and then their self-esteem and things like that. So anyway, physiological needs met by the ecosystems. So resources that accomplish this come in two categories. There are renewable resources, which are consumed at a lower rate than they are replenished. So we're putting them back into the environment at a higher rate than we're consuming them. And that's a good thing. We want to have renewable resources being utilized because then we can replace what we're using. The opposite of that is obviously the non-renewable resources. Resources that are found on Earth in limited amounts or that are replaced over very long periods of time, like oil and gas, things like that. Those are non-renewable. All right. Now, one of the things that you should know is that I'm going to have to move myself again. It'll take a little getting used to. Our usage of natural resources is not evenly distributed. Okay. Canada and the United States are the two countries in the world that are using a lot of the natural resources, the vast majority. Now, we also produce a lot, and so it's important to look at those two things together, how much we produce and how renewable versus non-renewable we are. But we do use a lot more of the resources. We use more of the electricity, more of the food. We throw away a lot more. We are very consumer driven versus the rest of the world. You can see there India has a lot more people than we do, but they consume a lot less. And so there's something to be learned from that. I'm not sure what, but we have a couple of numbers here that people use to measure how bad we are for the environment. One of them is our ecological footprint. It's a measure usually in hectares per person. Hectare is a piece of land, it's a size of land, and it's a measure of the human demand on the Earth's ecosystem. How much does a person need in terms of food and water and things like that to survive? And then we balance that with biocapacity. Myself back to the other corner. Biocapacity is the ability of an area to generate their ongoing supply of renewable resources. So can they support the population that they have? And those renewable resources can absorb the spillover wastes, and that biocapacity is the good thing. It's what we can recycle and reuse and generate to balance out our ecological footprint. And so there's a way of thinking about this that we where we're either sustainable or we're not ecologically. If we're sustainable, our footprint from the last page, our ecological footprint is less than our biocapacity. That's a good thing. We want it to be that way. Our footprint needs to be less than what we're being able to produce in a renewable fashion. We are unsustainable if our footprint is greater than our capacity, our biocapacity. That means that we use more than we can possibly put back into the environment. Sustainable use refers to when we try consciously with a resource to produce it and rejuvenate it in a renewable way. Okay, so when you try to consciously plant trees to replace the ones you're cutting down, then that's a sustainable use. Lots of things are not used sustainably. And this is an interesting chart. Let me move myself again here. This shows the countries that have this non-sustainability. Okay, if they're in this category, their footprint is greater than their biocapacity. So looking around the world, those that are dark orange into even the lighter yellows, those are the ones that are consuming more non-renewable stuff and not able to produce renewable things to counterbalance themselves. So China, India, Egypt, I can't remember what country that is, Iraq, Mexico, the United States, and a few of the South American countries. In these different areas, we're in trouble because we're consuming much more than we're producing. Now, I kind of was surprised that the United States was only in the yellow because we consume so much more of the resources. But it still needs to be, we need to be in the green, okay? Because we've got to be able to maintain our society and our resources, okay? So some of the things that we use include, obviously we have to put food in there. Trees are a big one, paper, and lots of different things that we use trees for. Food, birds and mammals are lesser sources of food. Some of the birds that we actually cultivate for food, like chickens and turkeys, those are a renewable resource because as long as we're growing more chickens than we consume, it would be considered renewable. Now, seafood is a problem because there are fish farms, but those make up the small minority of the seafood that is used. Shrimp and different types of seafood are hunted and fished out of the oceans, and those things are in trouble. We are still depleting species faster than new species are created, and there are estimates, a couple of different studies that have been done that say that seafood will be depleted within about 40 years. So you won't be able to get things that are available in the wild ocean. Conservation needs to be taken into account with non-living resources as well, the oil, the coal. Those things, while they're not living things, they both come from living things and they can't be replenished. They're both non-renewable resources. And so we're consuming and consuming and consuming at an unsustainable rate with those items, obviously. Yeah, so we have a couple of ways that people are trying to take care of these problems. One is to identify biodiversity hotspots. About 1,500 species of plants are endemic, which means that they're in areas where they can't be found anywhere else in the world. And so in these places, they define them as, whoops, didn't mean to do that. They define them as hotspots. And they've lost at least 70% of their original habitat to be considered a hotspot. Okay, this is a map of the hotspots here, right here. So you got these red areas are hotspots. These are some of the things that are found there. Desert slender salamander, the woolly, can't see what that says down there. Monkey, it's a monkey. The monk seal, the giant panda, very endangered. Swallowtail butterfly. Orchids are hunted. I know it's kind of weird to hunt for flower, but people actually will collect these orchids and they'll sell them for really, really high prices. And so they're kind of like a collector's item that people go pay for. So some hot spots where we focus our attention and try to maintain this particular ecosystem because it's got a high amount of stuff we don't want to lose that's in danger. Another way that we do it is to try to fight the fragmentation of habitat. That was last section, was where the habitats are being broken up into different pieces. And one of the really interesting ways is by creating bridges between fragmented areas, passageways between the habitat fragments that allow animals actually to cross these bridges. And they don't have to be as fancy as the one in this picture. This is obviously a more expensive option, but there are places in Utah that are just digging tunnels under roads, and that's a really easy way to fix this problem. Okay, it creates a larger piece of land because these are connected, and they can maintain their genetic diversity and have a little bit more space to roam. So those are a good thing, corridors between fragments. Once an ecosystem is damaged in some way, it may take a long time to bring it back to normalcy. This is recovery time versus size of the affected area, and different natural versus human disasters that can happen. A big meteor strike can take thousands of years, tens of thousands of years to recover from. And you can see human-caused ones are right up here. Industrial pollution, groundwater exploitation, things like that. So not good stuff. It's sometimes very, very difficult to recover from this. And the larger the affected area, the longer it takes. Another way that people tend to try to fix things is called bioremediation. And these are used, this is a use of prokaryotes or fungus or certain plants to detoxify. In particular, there are species of bacteria that will say eat oil. So if there's an oil spill, they'll put the bacteria out into the oil, and it will digest it and eat it up and take care of it. So that's bioremediation. And then the last slide here has some of the most interesting information on it, really. One of the ways that biodiversity is tried to maintain is that if we have a pest or some way that is in something that's invading an ecosystem, or an ecosystem that's damaged, we can bring back in a natural predator and try to fix the ecosystem. Okay. Lady beetles are common here, especially the Asian variety, and they were actually introduced in order to control the aphid populations on corn and beans. Beans, I think, primarily. But these aphids, we don't like them necessarily, but they're very good for the aphid population because those damage crops, whereas the lady beetles don't damage the crops. And so that's a good thing. The cane toads are really interesting, and if you want to watch a really funny documentary sometime, you should Google the cane toads of Australia. But they were introduced, they're not a natural predator to the cane beetle, but they do eat the cane beetle. They just weren't native to Australia. But they were introduced, and now they're absolutely out of control, or they were for a long time. I'm not sure what the current status of them is. But that's all. I don't want to talk anymore about that, but look up cane toads if you're interested. They're pretty funny. So thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you later.